Hello, I'd like to talk today about a very beautiful book from Pema Chodron and also my experience while I was reading the book and how I reacted to it. The book is The Places That Scare You. It's a guide to fearlessness in difficult time. And in the first chapter, she presents to us a concept, a very ancient concept of the Buddhist Tibetan monks. It is the bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is a kind of compassion, and that can be able to dissolve the barrier that are built on a deep fear of being heard. So the first obstacle to go in the places that scare us, it can be disease, it can be unemployment, it can be the fact of going through a family crisis. The first barrier is the deep fear of being hurt. So we can enter a sort of ivory tower or enter in addiction situations or and all sorts of addiction situations that she describes. The one I know best because each one of us knows what he's trapped into is workaholism, and also a little bit of sport addiction in a part of my life that I used to really run a lot and 2 or 3 hours a day, and it was a kind of escape from the fears of being hurt and to enter in touch with the challenge situations in order to alleviate suffering. And she advised us to enter in those challenge situations, to go in these challenge situations and say there is absolutely nothing to lose. And she analyzed how we relate to discomfort. And in that manner, I would like to make a bridge with Dr. Brian Lynch's works while he's speaking of knowing our emotions, where he says we can avoid the situations, we can step into aggression, the aggression of others or the aggression of ourselves, and in not to really face the problem and to define the problem, because and she says the same thing. She says the pain comes from resisting from our fears, and we should get to know them well. And get to know our fears well is get to define the emotional problem that is hurting us. And eventually, she says, we might decide to stop hurting ourselves in the same old ways. And each one knows how he hurt himself or herself, or how she hurt herself in the same old ways. And she says, well, when you feel and when you allow yourself to feel, and when you enter the challenge situation and you stay there, there are cracks in your being that allows compassion to flow. And she just say, relax with the things as they are, because we are always in transition and things will not remain that way. And it's a kind of egolessness state. And was really important for me is when she say, learn to stay with the discomfort, to stay in the situation when things are falling apart. You just stay there, and you will see you will find some compassion. And compassion. What is this compassion? Well, it's a bodhisattva practice. It's the warrior in the Buddhist tradition. It's interesting because they have this strange figure. In a way, you practice compassion and so you should be a peaceful, very deep, peaceful person, but it's kind of a warrior, the bodhisattva. So because there is a battle that you have to enter in to be compassionate, the battle is to not running away from the fear of being hurt, and to stand in a compassionate manner, even if in front of you you have someone that can hurt you. And to have this compassion is a very difficult, and to stay there, it's not easy game. So because they believe, the Buddhist monks, they believe that the best way to serve ourselves is to love and care for others. And they make a bodhisattva aspiration, and it's very beautiful. Aspiration is, maybe I be free from suffering, or be free from the roots of suffering. So to be free from the roots of suffering, and I should say that we must enter some theoretical works about emotions, because I know that sometimes theory is heavy and concepts are not easy game to share, but I just was very interested on affect psychology group research about emotions, because what we fear most sometimes, and it's the emotions and our own emotions. And compassion is not, for Pema Chodron, a relation between a healer and a wounded, but a relation between equals. Why a relation between equals? Well, a relation between equals because we were equally wounded and because we have those same dark emotions in ourselves that we are compelled to know and to understand, and to not fear but to look at, and to define the problem, to evaluate the problem, and to solve our emotional problems while we stay with the hurt. And so it's very interesting. I beg your pardon, but she defines what is this compassion when she says, well, it is, compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. Compassion becomes real when we recognize our shared humanity. And the shared humanity is not only the beautiful side, the bright side of the moon, I will say. It is the dark side of the moon too. It is our own darkness. When we stay with our own darkness, with our own fears, then we are able to understand the darkness and the fear of others. And so, once again, she says there is nothing to lose. On the contrary, there is all to learn, because it's in this move of staying with our hurts that we find the soft spot, we find the compassion, we find, and then we can be free from suffering and from the roots of suffering. And because we go to approach them not in a scared manner or a resistant manner, an avoidance manner, but in a way to understand what's going on, what's the problem, and how we can solve it, and step by step, and evaluate the situation, and enter in a rational mood. So it calls us to a non-resistant zone, And that's are the works of Dr. Basarab Nicolescu that are so complex. And I made the video, I beg your pardon again, it was a complicated video, but it was a very interesting video about the non-resistance zone we have in ourselves. That is the same zone that the Bodhisattva has while he stays when in the place that scares him, or that the place that scared you. When we stay in that place, that's the only way to approach the situation and to solve the problems we have. So thank you for your attention, and see you very soon in the next video about those interesting topics. Thank you again.